The sorrow and the anger that I feel I think is palpable in this courtroom. It's still raw after 8 years. I don't know of any way to adequately address the pain felt by a parent who loses a child, whether that child is an infant, a juvenile, or an adult. I wish I could provide closure to the family and friends by what I do this morning, but that's really beyond my power as a judge to do. I can't provide an adequate explanation for why Nicole Pietz is dead. I would suggest that the mother's forgiveness is a step in that direction of closure. Ms. Snyder, I think you recognize that the anger that you carry with you probably eats at you as much as it eats at him, and that going through that period of resolution and forgiveness is probably the first step toward healing. We all heard ample testimony concerning Nicole's medical history, her struggle with prescription drugs, her addiction, and her visits to AA and her efforts to recover. You were well aware of her struggle. You knew full well when you married her that she had that struggle, and you knew it through the course of the marriage. What I found particularly appalling prior to the date of her death was the testimony that in a nightclub, without her knowledge, you placed an illegal substance in her drink. You did it for the purpose of inducing her to perform a public sex act on you. The rest of it that you did with other women was not criminal. Likely what you did to your wife that night was criminal. Giving someone illegal drugs against their consent and knowledge is probably an assault. Had you done it to a woman not your wife, it would probably have been rape in the second degree. The state didn't charge those offenses. At the very least, I regard it an act of domestic violence against your spouse. I think it showed, given her addiction, your utter disregard for her safety and her well-being. You don't spike an addict's drink with drugs if you care about them. You don't know what spiral you'll put them into. You did it for your own personal sexual satisfaction, and I found that, when I heard the testimony, absolutely abhorrent and criminal. I don't know what happened on January 27th, 2006, when you got home. And we don't know what confrontation led to Nicole's death, whether it was over finances, over your history with other women, over her discovery of that. I do not know. What we do know from the evidence is that you killed your wife at very close range, within an arm's length. The inference is that she was able to look into your eyes when you did it, and that the resulting death took a course of several minutes rather than a few seconds. I don't know what was going through her head as she looked into the face of the man she thought she loved as he took her life away. I cannot conceive of her thoughts at that moment. I don't know. We do know that after the death, you carefully planned to cover up the complicity in the murder. You misled the family. You added to the tragedy that they were already feeling. And ultimately, it fell apart. And I suspect that you found out that you weren't quite as smart as you thought you were. And we're standing here today. But the evidence is pretty clear that as you committed the act, you had plenty of time to think of it as you looked into your wife's eyes. This is the first case I've tried where it was so close, personal, and lasted so long as a murder in the second degree. And in my judgment, that places it within the category of those offenses at the most aggravated end of the offense. Those are the factors I've considered. Accordingly, the sentence will be at the high end of the standard range, 220 months. There'll be 24 to 36 months of community custody, victim penalty assessment, DNA, and a lifetime prohibition. This concludes this matter. The court is now in recess.
Please rise. Just like some